to harvest, and there was this rainstorm. It was so heavy for about 2 hours. And by the time we came out, the woman with me screamed and said, "Mommy, mommy, mommy." What happened? By the time I looked over, 400 of my plantain trees had fallen.
Oh, wow.
Wow. So many of them, about 100, had fruits that I couldn't do anything with. But the rest, I looked at it. What will I do? So prior to that time, I had applied to BOI that I was going to take a loan of 10 million to start a small factory. And I again looked at myself that if I start this factory, where is my market? How do I pay 10 million back? So along the line, I discovered TIC, Technical Incubation Center. It's an arm of Federal Ministry of Science and Technology at Odogbolu. So when that thing happened, that incident happened, I just packaged all the plantain and I took it there. So that was the beginning of my journey into production. You know, sometimes you keep procrastinating and God has a plan for you. So he just allows you to enter a mess so that you can start what he has planned for your life.
Wow. Somebody say an amen right there. That is a message from the mama. All right. So that was a turning point. Started. Okay.
And then Lagos State every year, there's this MSME fair that they organize. It's an exhibition. So I started it 2019 November.
Permit me to, because I know there's a lot of story in this. How old are you?
60.
You know, put your hands together for mommy at 60. Apart from the fact that she looks superlative, sensational, total serendipity.
Yeah.
Honestly, but what it is simply is that you're a synergia right now. And I'm looking at it 6 decades, but she never gave up. I was actually going to talk to Afrexim and say, how about the late bloomers? Yes, you're giving the opportunity to people from 24 to 40. But after 40, women are still going.
That's it.
Do I have many more takers here? And so for the late bloomers, what do we do? Especially when we're Goldie bloomers. Don't give up. Don't retire. It's even beyond refiring. Because what do you refire if you didn't have something in the first place?
Can we even tell them something?
Tell them.
Where the elderly ones are, like the Bible says, they are the ones who will show the younger ones the road. So if you don't take care of us, how do we show them the road?
Oh, mommy, you see, I'm taking care of mommy today. Not apart from everything else now. Now let's get to the turmeric story.
Turmeric story. I looked at it. In fact, I've been taking trainings on how to go global. I've had trainings with She Trades. I've had trainings with ITC, International Trade Center.
You see why I was emphasizing how old she is? Because she's talking about training here, going there. Yes.
And so, then 2 months ago, NEPC brought a program selling on Amazon. So I went for that training at Apapa. And as we finished, the man said, you cannot get this thing with this 3 hours training. You need to come for my training for 2 days. So I paid and I went for it. And we did all it took just 2 months ago. This is my turmeric. It's going on Amazon this week.
Wow.
I have a PA. I've been onboarded on Mansa Afrexim.
Amazing.
Yes, I am on the global database of D&B. I have NAFDAC.
And all through this contact. Wow. And people say nothing is happening in this country. Please, let us pay attention to the things that demand that we pay, transact attention with what it is that is calling our attention. Mommy, I have already prayed. Oh, this is my complimentary copy. You see, I said copy. My complimentary turmeric. Thank you so much. Oh, please put your hands together. Let's appreciate. This is Mommy Bosun Sholari and Dasun Integrated Farms Limited. Who's interested in meeting her teacher? Who wants to go on Amazon? It doesn't have to be turmeric. The principle is the same. Go and find her school principal and go to school. You know, earlier on I spoke to Princess Juliet Abo, and that was great. Bolanle Odiale, founder, CEO of CreditWise Financials Limited. And what they do is fund women business and work with you with other collateral opportunities, businesses, and interests. I have Tolulokwe Idiakwa, the CEO of Acterioscape. So she is both a carpenter and an architect. Are you here, Tolulokwe? Oh, congratulations. There we have the lady carpenter. Let's celebrate her again. I know one of our more famous lady carpenters is Mommy Odushote, right? Exactly. So congratulations, Tolulokwe. You have anything you'd like to share with us? Oh, don't act shy. Come on. No. If there's one thing we must learn to be in doing what we do, you must be bold. You must be bold to be beautiful. And to be bold and beautiful, I've realized you require the B-R-A-V-E, brave expression. All right, I'm having these conversations. I'm just waiting for, see my lady in red, just like, did we know about these colors before we dressed up today? Come on, let's do this. Let's take a catwalk together. Come on, let's just step it out. Yeah, we were very intentional about the red shoes, right? I mean, the red shoes, talk to me about the color red. You know, I tell people, when in doubt, wear red, all right? So, so talk to us. You're a carpenter, you're an architect. What does that mean?
Okay, so I studied architecture in school. I think that maybe it must have stemmed from my mom being an artist and my dad being an engineer. So I kind of fell in love with it right from when I knew what the word architecture meant. I remember my mom telling me a cousin of mine studied architecture, and what do they do? She said they draw houses. And I'm like, you mean they pay people to draw houses? And I'm like, that's what I'm gonna do. Anyway, so I'm an architect, I'm a carpenter, but being a carpenter wasn't deliberate. So I walked out of the country for a while. So when I was coming back, I knew I was going to have my own architecture firm, but I also wanted furniture to be a big part of it, furniture production. So I didn't want to be one of those bosses who had people working for them and you had no idea what was going on. So I now went and got a diploma in carpentry, but not because I wanted to be a carpenter, but just so I could have a knowledge. But when I came back, exhausted, most of my fun setting up the business, and I moved into an apartment and I did not have enough to furnish. That was what now started making me do really, yes, lady carpenter work. So I started doing convertible furniture mostly. So people with small spaces, furniture that you can fold out, sofas that, you know, turn into beds and stuff like that. So that's what I do. And it's a good thing you mentioned colors because I also studied color psychology. So I train people on that in their branding and all that. Thank you.
I find that very interesting. Please help me appreciate Tolulokwe. So color psychology, talk to me about the color red and me in all this red.
Okay, so definitely red is the power color. So red is studies. I'm going to science now.
Okay, go to science.
Yes, I'm going to science. So studies actually say that, or has proven that when you wear red or when you're exposed to red, your heart rate increases without you knowing. So it is a stimulating color, and the opposite of it is blue. So red is a stimulant. It makes your heartbeat race faster. They say women find men more attractive when they are wearing red. That's what they say. And all that. And so red is a power color. When you go into a meeting and you wear red, it's an attention grabber, definitely. And it makes you eat more. So that is why Mr. Biggs and all those people always give you food in red trays. It's not because the red tray is the only tray they sell. When you eat with a red plate or a red tray or in a red environment, you tend to eat more.
Now you know why when you go for Chinese, you eat so much. There's so much red in the environment. Thank you so much, Tolulokwe, for that free color psychology course. Well, all I know is that the day my husband proposed to me, the song Lady in Red was playing. So, actually, apart from that, he simply told me that, Dayo, you should wear red. And coming from the kind of fearful, shy, people say it's not possible. Don't mind, there are many things you can just face and present. But from that position, he's been a great life coach for me. Thank you very much. So thank you very much for all of those contributions and interventions. It's been interesting and it gets more interesting. But I tell you what, this is something you can do. You can engage someone right on the table next to you. You can do an interview with them, put it on your own phone, like do the recording and say, hi, everybody. Today, I'm at the Women Business, West Africa Business Forum for Women and Youth. And I'm here and meet my new friend from Burkina Faso. Hi. And she talks about what she does. You talk about what you do, post it. And then invite people to get on board with you, with your business and with the business happening here. There's so much more. So everybody, where you are on your table, take a group picture and post right now. I'm giving you 3 minutes. Go on, selfies, phones out. That's what your phone is for. Don't keep it in your bag. Take the selfies now. Now, selfies, selfies. Everybody together, take a selfie, smile and go, yeah, hi, this is my friend. Find someone, connect. Connect the dots. It's critical, connect. I want to see some energy. You're sitting down looking at me. No, please. I need my translators. Let people know. I want pictures, and I want you to begin to post. Post and put them online. What am I putting it on? What is it? West Africa Business Forum. What is it called? Please put it online. Put it there. Let everybody know what to send to. Hashtag it and send it there. Everybody, come on, do something. Share the moment. That is what all those expensive phones are for, okay? Don't just use them to take your personal selfie. Do it with somebody and tell them where you are, who you're with. Come on. I need some more energy. Tell them in Cameroon. Tell them in Burkina Faso. Tell them in Guinea-Bissau. Tell them in Guinea. Tell them in Ghana. Tell them in Niger. Tell them in Liberia. Tell them in Cote d'Ivoire. Tell them in Cape Verde. Tell them in Mali. Tell them in Nigeria. And tell them again, if you're sitting down, you're in the wrong position for you to help me get some activation in here. Get the pictures going. Get the pictures coming. Somebody make some noise. Make it a short video. Do a TikTok. Somebody do something. You can make it happen just by making it happen. Make it sizzle. Make it ginger. Add some turmeric to it. Make it help. If you're sitting down by yourself, why are you sitting down by yourself? Find someone to network with. Find a brother. Find a sister from another tribe and greet them in your language. West Africa Business Forum for Women and Youth. This is the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa. More energy. Big smiles, bigger smiles, bigger smiles. Bigger smiles, the big smiles have it. Hug yourselves, love on yourselves. Oh, my lady in red, oh my word. Talk about another lady in red. If you are wearing red, come up stage. If you are wearing red, come up stage. Everyone in red, come up stage. Are you in red? Everyone in red. When the children are in red. Come up stage. Okay, have you got red on you? Come on. Everyone doing something with the power red. Oh my goodness, somebody has changed orange to red. It doesn't matter, just come. Whatever it is, just make sure you're there. All right. Hello, Africa. All right, everybody, do we have it? Hello, now, Africa. How we doing, Africa? How you doing, Africa? I'm doing Africa. From Cape Verde and from Burkina, I am doing Africa. I'm from Ghana or Niger, I am doing Africa. Somebody say I am Ivory Coast. Are you from Cape Verde? I am doing Africa. Somebody say, I'm from Liberia. I am doing Africa. Are you from Guinea or Guinea-Bissau? I am doing Africa. Perhaps you are from Senegalia. I am doing Africa. Whoever you are, can you help me say, I am doing Africa? Lift your hands in the air and tell them now, I am. To the right, to the left, and make it a happy moment. I am doing. I'm a lady, I'm a man, and I know that I am doing Africa. Woo! Put your hands together, everybody. Give me an A, F, R, I, C, A, Africa. All right, everybody. I am doing Africa. Wherever I'm from, I'm in Nigeria. I am doing Africa. Woo! All right, clap, clap, clap. Let it be an applause as you get back to your seats, celebrating the spirit, the power, the life, the joie de vivre of Africa, and all of the celebration. Say Jubilee, love me, love Africa. Aha, thank you. Hi, how we doing, Africa? All right. Okay, the class captain is going to punish me right now because I've created a noisy class. Thank you. All right, so everybody, please, at Dio Benlani, my Instagram.
One day while he was working.
Dio Benjamin Lani, find me and I'll find you. Thank you very much. And now, for this next presentation, before the panel discussion, okay, I need everybody to be seated now. Don't let me get punished by the class captain. Thank you very much. I am doing Africa. I'm going to have to get someone to, I just waxed an album. That's for West Africa. Talking about which, I'm thinking we should really do a West African anthem competition. What do you think? I'll work it out. We'll do something. So we come up with our anthem. Okay, so this next presentation, and for this session, you know what I like about this? Usually they talk about the fact that post-lunch is always like the graveyard hour, you know, because everything goes down, but thank God for the energy that's come. Understanding constraints of women and youth in doing business. So this is about understanding the constraints. And for the presentation preceding the panel discussion, I'm going to be inviting Corel Dino, representing Vanessa Fala, the director of the International Labour Office, Abuja. We're inviting Corel Dino, representing Vanessa Fala from the International Labour Office. So Vanessa is here. Wow, please let's put our hands together and appreciate the fact that Vanessa is here now. Thank you very much. So I am going to read. Vanessa, you're coming up immediately after this. Vanessa Fala is a national of South Africa, recently joined the International Labour Organization, ILO, as a senior specialist for employers' activities at the ILO Decent Work Team and Office for the Caribbean. Prior to joining the ILO, Ms. Fala was the executive director for social and transformation policy at Business Unity South Africa, BUSA. Actually, Ms. Fala, I'm trying to get everybody to be quiet before I bring you up. Thank you. Thank you very much. In this capacity, she was responsible for policy advocacy and participated in negotiations of various labor legislation at the National Economic Development and Labor Council. She also represented BUSA at a number of ILO engagements, including the International Labour Conference, and was spokesperson for the employers group during the tripartite meeting on sustainable development, decent work, and green jobs in October 2015. Ms. Fala was named one of the winning women in April 2014 by City Press one of the largest newspapers which recognizes young women making meaningful contribution to the business sector in South Africa. She was also nominated for the 2015 Most Influential Woman in Business and Government in South Africa. On the 8th of December 2015, she was conferred the Global Sustainability Leadership Award by the World Sustainability Congress. Today, here at the West Africa Business Forum for UNECA, we would like you to please welcome Ms. Vanessa Falla, Director, International Labour Office, on her presentation, Understanding Constraints for Women and Youth in Doing Business. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And good afternoon. We had a nice lunch. You had said before we went for lunch that we're going to have a power lunch, and I was worried that we're going to have a power nap afterwards, but I'm happy that the session that we just had now was able to wake us up, and we are all alive and excited. So I hope that I'm not going to put you to sleep, and please do bear with me. So thank you. I do have a presentation. If they have it, they can put it up, but otherwise it's okay. So as I said, my name is Vanessa Falla, and I am the director for the ILO office based in Abuja, responsible for Nigeria, Ghana, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and I'm also the liaison office for ECOWAS. Our colleagues are also in West Africa. I have a colleague in Abidjan and another one based in Senegal, in Dakar. So for those maybe who are not aware of what the ILO does, we are the only tripartite UN agency established in 1919. In 2019, we turned 100 years. And basically, we bring together member states from about 187 government and employers and workers' organizations to set labor standards, and also devise programs and policies to promote decent work. The labor standards that we've set as the ILO for 100 years of existence, they go from freedom of association, collective bargaining, elimination of child and forced labor, discrimination issues at the workplace, and the last convention that was adopted by the ILC, the International Labour Conference, it's on harassment and violence at work. And now a number of ILO member states are actually working on ratifying that convention. As we speak today, the Ministry of Labor, the Federal Ministry of Employment in Nigeria is conducting sensitization workshops around the convention. And I look forward to the day that Nigeria is going to ratify the convention. Ghana is also doing a lot of work on the ratification. And I think it's going to really set the tone in terms of issues of harassment and violence at work. So in a nutshell, that's what the ILO does. I'm also joined by my colleague. I'm sure you've seen him. He's now a photographer, Mr. Dino Corel. We are based in the Abuja office together. So I have been asked to speak on specifically understanding some of the barriers to women and youth businesses. And what I will try to do is to draw on some of the work that the ILO has been doing over the years, the knowledge that we have gained through the number of interventions that we have implemented, and also from the implementation of the various tools and methodologies that the organization has implemented over the number of years. So I will speak a little bit on the assessments that we normally conduct on women entrepreneurship development. And I'm very excited because for the very first time, we are going to do another, or rather a similar assessment for Nigeria. We're working very closely with NECA, which is Nigeria Employers Consultative Association. As I said earlier on, the ILO is a tripartite UN agency. So all the work that we do, we work with the employers represented by NECA and the workers organization represented by NLC. And the colleague from the sub-regional employers organization had joined us in the morning session. And I will also talk a little bit about some of the structural deficits that exist that actually creates barriers for women, just generally and a little bit specifically on those relating to young persons, to women, and also around entrepreneurship and self-employment. I wouldn't also want to leave the discussions without touching a little bit on the impact of COVID. I think there's been quite a lot opportunities that have emerged out of COVID, but also the reality is that there's been quite impact, particularly on specific sectors in the sub-region. And then briefly talk about how do we build back better. And as I do that, I will also make some reference to some of the initiatives that we are implementing as the ILO in the sub-region, and also the work that we are doing as far as promoting entrepreneurship and self-employment is concerned. I don't know who is controlling my slides, but every time I flip the page, you change the slide. So that will be the cue from me. Let me go to the next slide, please. So I just went through the structure of the presentation. Now, this is one of the longest, I think, methodology that the ILO has been using globally. And we've also done a number of some assessment also in Africa. Basically, this gives us evidence-based factual data about some of the constraints that exist at the national level as far as promoting and supporting women entrepreneurship development is concerned. The methodology is built around the 6 conditions that we call framework conditions. The first one looks at the legal framework and the regulatory framework. What kind of labor laws exist that really actually promotes women and also articulates issues around non-discrimination? The second pillar speaks to effective policy leadership and the coordination of some of the activities that are aimed at promoting women economic entrepreneurship development. And the other issue, I think this is also an important one, around access to gender sensitive financial services. And I think before we went on lunch, there was a participant that also spoke about access to finance. Again, access to gender sensitive business development services, access to markets and technology. And I think with the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, the opportunity that presents for young entrepreneurs and women entrepreneurs in Africa. And lastly, it's the most important issue about representation of women or women entrepreneurs and participation in policy dialogue. You can't really talk about women entrepreneurship and some of the challenges and the barriers that women entrepreneurs experience without having the voice of those women represented. We need to have them sitting on the table to tell us what exactly are the issues and how to go about addressing them. So creating those spaces to have women represented and talk about the issues is very important. And I've noticed that we do have here in the audience today, in addition to members of NECA and the NECA Women Entrepreneurship Network, but there's also the Lagos Chamber of Commerce. There's quite a lot of other formations and associations that brings together the interest of women entrepreneurship on board. Now, the challenge with that, which is what I have seen in other jurisdictions, is how do we make the voices coordinate? How do we coordinate the voice so that we speak with one, synchronized, synergized voice that really have a lot of impact and weight as far as informing policy outcomes and advocating for issues that are of concern for women. So as much as it is important to create spaces and create platforms for women to sit and talk and discuss, it's very important to make sure that those spaces are properly coordinated so that the voice that comes out of that is able to go to the right table and make representation on behalf of women. And I'll speak a little bit about that later. Now, from the assessments that we have done using this kind of methodology, I think what becomes very clear at the end is that in some instances, laws are there, policies are there, strategies are there. It also then becomes the matter of implementation that is a challenge. So we do know that the regulatory and the policy framework is comprehensive, but then how do we make it work for women entrepreneurs? And there seem to be sometimes a disjuncture or a disconnect between that and practice. Also, sometimes inadequate technical and financial resources to support women businesses, inadequate interagency coordination. And here it's also meaning interministerial coordination. There might be different ministries in our countries that has a role to play as far as women entrepreneurship, SME development, trade and industry, but how do also the government and the various ministries coordinate their interventions in such a way that they really make an impact on the ground? So we found that there's also that weaknesses in some of the structures that exist. Also, there is available funding. There's quite a lot of donor interest and support and a lot of investment and funding that is available to support generally business development, but there's very few of this that is actually targeting women-owned enterprises. And how do we then make sure that we are able to create opportunities for that? Now, I did say that I'm going to talk about some of the structural deficit as well, generally, and I think it has been said earlier, and I'm going to try not to repeat some of the things that have been said in the morning. I'm also aware that we are running a little bit out of time, so I will try to move as fast as possible. I think they spoke about in the morning about our continent being home to a lot of young persons, and which actually comprise more than a third of the population. And again, the rapid population growth that has also put a lot of pressure in the labor market. A few years ago, I think 2018, 2019, the ILO started global discussions around the future of work. It was about what kind of future of work do we want? And countries at the national level and at the sub-regional level convened discussions and dialogues to sort of draw what the future of work looks for the particular country and the region. And it became very clear that demographics, the changes in the demographics are driving the future of work. The innovative and technological advancements are driving the future of work. Climate change is driving the future of work. And hence you see now a lot of attention and an appetite towards the greening of enterprises, greening of institutions, greening of jobs. So the greening economy or the green economy is becoming more and more relevant as we are in this future of work. Also, that the young and the growing labor market or the labor force is also a potential resource for decent opportunities which needs to be created in the labor market. In spite of having these young persons that are really innovative and creating jobs, there's also an issue around decent jobs. And ILO defines decent job as a productive work for both men and women in conditions of freedom, equality, security, and human dignity. So it's not just about getting a job, waking up and going to work, but it's about having that decent job where you are given an opportunity to be productive, but also there is a space to also engage in social dialogue within the enterprises. You are not discriminated, you are paid the minimum wage, you are treated fairly and equally, and all of that comprises what we call a decent job. Now, even before COVID-19, the pandemic, the region was also facing a number of economic challenges, and the labor market situation, like I said, was characterized by decent work deficits, such as high levels of poverty and informality. And I think we've had a lot of some input relating to informality in our continent and our sub-region. There are other challenges of inequality. There are challenges of child labor still in Africa. And unfortunately, despite a lot of interventions, we're not seeing a decline of child labor in our region, in Africa and the sub-region. So those are some of the deficits that we are still facing with as the continent. Again, over the past decade, economic growth in the region was largely driven by low value-added sectors. And unfortunately, these low value-added sectors, they are not labor intensive. And because of that, they are not pro-employment, meaning they are not able to generate the number of jobs that are required. And overall, the majority of employment, like I said, in Africa remains very informal. And what we mean by informal employment or informal economy, informal jobs, really this is work that is not regulated or work that is not protected by the state. And I'll talk a little bit about that. We've seen how that COVID actually exposed some of the challenges relating to informality. When countries shut down because of COVID, travel restrictions, there were curfews in different parts of the world. Those that are engaged in informal economy had no other ways or means of earning a living or making an income. There's no adequate social protection. There's no unemployment insurance benefits for persons who are working in the informal economy. So if you are not able to wake up and go to work and make some money, there's no other alternative source of income that you can rely on. Hence, we've seen in many parts of the world, including in Africa, governments started having some dedicated incentives and grants and programs, food programs, different interventions also to support not only workers, but also companies and enterprises that had really been impacted by the pandemic. There were some relaxation of payments for different activities, freezing of certain payments so that businesses remain afloat and they are able to retain and not let go of staff. For young persons as well, we know that about 95% of young workers in Africa are in the informal employment and 60% are living in poverty. And this shows that the problem is not so much about lack of work, because there are opportunities in the informal economy, but it's more about lack of decent employment. And I think I've tried to explain what I mean by decent employment. And again, there are opportunities for self-employment where persons would have chosen, different paths in order to create jobs for themselves. And we've seen how the technology has also facilitated some of the self-employment. We've seen how with the COVID pandemic, many businesses went online. Now you can order things online. Actually, I've been in Nigeria now for, I think it's about 4 months or so. And it's amazing how a lot of things that I even buy, they are online. And when you speak to the owner, they don't have your brick and mortar shop like people would have in the past, but all the businesses are conducted online. So really that presents a lot of opportunities for entrepreneurs. And again, self-employment can also be another way of coping mechanism. We know that I think there's a realization that as young persons, we will have to create our own jobs and not sit and wait for jobs to be created for us. And hence you see a lot of young persons really going into entrepreneurship. Some of the structural challenges, deficits specifically relating to women, I've also spoken a little bit about it, is regarding also the fact that a lot of women work in the agricultural sector. And also this is the sector that is also quite informal in nature. And because of that, you've got low pay, you have inferior working conditions. So some of those are really what is making it difficult for a lot of women who are entrepreneurs in the informal economy. And it employs outside of the agricultural sector about some 80% of women in non-agricultural employment. Now, some of the specific challenges that are facing young persons and women entrepreneurs include lack of enabling environment, regulatory and institutional environment, weak entrepreneurial environment, including limited access to markets, limited access to finance and investment opportunities, and limited skills and knowledge transfer. And as the ILO, of course, while we have collected all this information from the different, research and technical insight and produced a lot of technical tools and methodologies, we are now actually beginning to implement in collaboration again with the governments, with the employers organizations, and with the workers organization to implement specific interventions to really address some of the challenges or some of the weaknesses that are coming out of our systems. As I said, the pandemic has had quite a huge impact globally, also in our region, and we've seen that women have been disproportionately affected by COVID, and also female employment has declined by 5% in comparison to 3.9% for men. And when you look also at the reduction of employment rates for young persons, has been 2.5 times higher than that of adults. So it doesn't matter how you look at it, women and young persons find themselves at a very difficult and quite challenging conditions. And again, the crisis has put a lot of pressure on economies and the labor market in Africa. I think the estimates numbers coming out of the research conducted by the ILO and other organizations indicate that there's about 7 million job gaps at least in 2020. And this means that combined, we've lost jobs and we've also forgone job growth. And together, the number is about 17 million. And this is quite a huge number, considering that a lot of those persons would be, having some form of, making a living out of the different jobs that they would get. Again, and only 20% of the region workers are covered by social protection benefit. I spoke about unemployment insurance, and again, working hours and income losses tend to result again in increased poverty. And enterprises that are also owned by women have been particularly affected by the pandemic. And there are specific sectors that women actually operate in: hospitality, tourism, services, agriculture. And those are the sectors that would have also been, amongst others, impacted by COVID-19. I will try to move a little bit faster. Now, how do we build back better? How do we really reposition ourselves, our businesses, our policies, our interventions in such a way that we are building back better from the pandemic? And also, as we do that, what lessons are we drawing from the pandemic so that, and I don't want to say, but what lessons are we drawing without really jinxing us? What lessons are we really drawing from these experiences to help us navigate troubled waters in future? So unleashing the potential of young and women as drivers of job creation and economic growth is not desirable, but is critical for sustainable development. Building back from the pandemic means that we have to realize the potential of young persons. And also it means that we need to shift capital and labor from low towards high productivity and high value added sectors. And this is one of the lessons that are coming out of that. Social dialogue is also one of the critical areas that I think is very important as part of building back better. As I said, the ILO, it's a tripartite organization. So every work that we do, it's built on the foundation of social dialogue, where we sit with governments, employers, and workers' organizations to really chart the way forward. And I'm also not surprised that even during the peak of the pandemic, you found in many countries in the region and the sub-region, government consulting workers' organization and employers organization on some of the interventions that will be implemented in the short to medium term to really assist workers and enterprises that were affected by COVID-19. I think there's been quite a lot of reference since in the morning to the African continental free trade and how this also creates a potential to increasing intra-Africa trade and stimulate structural transformation that could also lead to decent jobs. So for many of the young, the women entrepreneurs, the young entrepreneurs that are in the room today, have you located yourself within this Africa continental free trade area? What opportunities do you see for your business, and who do you need to connect with or contact, collaborate with to make your business success in the continent? This is an opportunity for your products to reach the African market. I think Africa as a whole, as a market, it's in Nigeria alone is huge. So now you bring in the whole continent, there comes additional opportunity. So how do we make platforms such as this as an opportunity to really start beginning to ask ourselves, what am I going to benefit, and who do I need to bring on board? What kind of partnerships, collaboration, and network do we need to establish so that we can actually realize the principles and objectives of this opportunity that has been presented before us and that is sitting in Accra, in Ghana? Also, policy interventions should focus on sectors that has high potential for growth for both women and young entrepreneurs. I spoke about digital economy. A lot of persons have also mentioned digital economy. Greening, the green economy also presents quite a lot of opportunities. There are many other that are there. So how do we make sure that we really devise policy measures that will begin to trigger development and growth in those sectors so that we can see young persons and women coming on board to take opportunities in those spaces. Also, how do we begin to build public investment in infrastructure such as roads, ports that could actually improve enterprise access to markets and supplies? I'm very happy that for the ILO, we recently signed an €8 million project funded by the European Union in Sierra Leone. It's a 4-year program, and I had an opportunity to go to Sierra Leone and also visit one site where the project will be implemented. In addition to the project really supporting feeder road maintenance and feeder road rehabilitation, but the project also is going to support a value chain agricultural development where we're going to work with women in Sierra Leone that are farming poultry, cassava, and we're going to work with them, develop their skills, but also facilitate them to be able to access markets. So the purpose of building those feeder roads is to make sure that those that are outside are able to get access into the market and be able to transport and sell their goods and services. It is also going to provide an opportunity to do a lot of entrepreneurial training in Sierra Leone. We're going to be working in 4 districts, in Bo, Bombali, Kanama, and Port Loko. And I had an opportunity to visit Bombali when I visited Sierra Leone recently. Another one is around public and private procurement that could also help in terms of leveraging support for young persons and women-owned businesses. Again, the issue of productivity. I think there's a lot of opportunity in terms of how do we work collaboratively to improve productivity in our different enterprises. The ILO has also over the years developed tools that are meant to improve productivity at the enterprise level. We've done a lot of work in Ghana with the Ghana Enterprise Agency, with the Management Productivity Institute in Ghana, where we are really working with small enterprises and really providing technical support, but also tools in terms of how to improve productivity in your businesses. Again, support in accessing business services and training programs, including in collaboration with employers organizations. I mentioned that the ILO is collaborating with NECA and also through the NECA network of women entrepreneurs to conduct a similar assessment that I spoke to earlier on. Entrepreneurship and self-employment can also be promoted through creating an enabling business environment through policies that really targets the right regulatory framework and enhances technical and non-technical entrepreneurial skills. Also facilitating access to markets. I think we've mentioned that, access to finance, innovative financing mechanisms, and also engaging and discussing and involving the private sector. The private sector is the engine engine for employment and the engine for economic growth. So job creation and economic growth cannot happen outside of the involvement of the private sector. The Vice President of Nigeria recently launched Generation Unlimited Nigeria, which is a collaboration with the UN and development partners. It is led by UNICEF, and also you have quite a number of very powerful private sector in Nigeria that are collaborating as part of Generation Unlimited to create job opportunities for young persons. The target is about 20 million of young Nigerians will be provided with job opportunities. So it's a global initiative. It is implemented in different parts of the world, and Nigeria has launched its own initiative in that regard. There's also opportunities around the digital economy, and ILO is collaborating with the International Telecommunication Union. Of course, they bring a lot of expertise around ICTs and telecommunications, and therefore we are implementing a program that is looking at boosting decent jobs and enhancing skills for African youth in the digital economy. And we are implementing this program in Ivory Coast, Kenya, Nigeria, Rwanda, and Senegal. And there's also an exploratory initiative in Ethiopia. This is looking at both the demand side of the digital skills and the supply side of digital skills, in terms of demand, meaning demand for jobs, job creation, and supply, the skills that are required for persons to be able to be employed in those digital sectors or digital jobs. Promoting entrepreneurship and self-assessment, like I said, entrepreneurship program also forms part of a more general set of policies and programs that are designed to integrate young people into quality employment. The ILO, again, part of our methodology and approach, we have what we call the SIYB, which stands for Start and Improve Your Business. So we've been implementing this as a training program targeting persons that want to start their business or that have started their business, but they want to improve their business. So we've rolled it out we have actually trainers in Nigeria, we've rolled it out in Sierra Leone, we've rolled it out in Ghana and the other parts of the sub-region. Also, entrepreneurship program can have a large impact on when combined with other labor-intensive market measures such as wage subsidies and training targeted to startups. Also, green entrepreneurship, like I said, it presents another opportunity for employment. In Ghana, actually, we are doing a lot of work around greening, even of the TVET institutes. We've also helped establish sector councils. So you have a sector council for agriculture, construction, ICT. And this is the reason for this, because sometimes the business community will say, you know, learners coming out of universities, they don't have the skills that we want. They go through these programs, they get their certificates, they come to work, but they are not giving us what we want. So through the establishment of this targeted sectoral councils, we are then contributing towards designing the curriculum that is best suited for the labor market. So each sector having its own council, it becomes very critical because it means the key sectoral players from the private sector will be involved in talking to the TVET Institute and say, for somebody to become a welder, a plumber, electrician, these are the kind of competencies and these are the kind of skills that are required. So when you design your curriculum, make sure that you are addressing this competency so that when the person graduates and look for employment, they can be able to service and render the kind of service that is required by the labor market. So this is work that we are doing in Ghana, and it is my hope and dream and wish that we will also see other countries in the sub-region going through the same process. I will also leave it here now, but also let me take this opportunity to also talk about the importance of cooperatives as well, especially when you talk about women entrepreneurs. And these are enterprises that are collectively owned by an association or individuals, and that can enable young persons to pool resources. We are doing a lot of work currently in Liberia on cooperatives, establishing cooperatives where they do not exist, and where they exist, trying to strengthen them so that they are able to become more effective and contribute to economic growth, to job opportunities, livelihoods, sustainability, wages, and so forth and so on. So, ladies and gentlemen, that will be the end of my presentation, and thank you so much for your attention.
Let's appreciate Madam Hala. Vanessa, thank you so much. I know that we stretched you with that. I'd like to say thank you. Thank you. Please, once again, a round of applause. Let's appreciate. Thank you very much. And like she said, I can understand her concern with so much dynamic information for all of us. Yes, this was a critical timing for all of that critical uploading. So I'm certain that with the conference coordinators and everything, I know there's so much. I was trying to take my notes and well, I just managed to do some summarizing. And I think with the summarizing, without any question, the emphasis for me came to one phrase in particular. The news is this, that we can build back better. Whatever the factual profiling of the different experiences post-COVID may be, when you look at what the realities are and the real opportunities for restructuring and resetting our engagement transformatively with Enterprise for Africa, particularly with regard to AfCFTA and the direction of the ILO in particular now as clearly enunciated for us, we can see that these are areas that we need to look at again and determine that in re-engineering, we really deliberately and intentionally, with clarity, we set just what the framework of the engagement for enterprise needs to be. Digital economy is coming up again upfront as a first critical skill for employment engagements and re-engineering our business. Let's understand that whatever we're talking about, whatever the challenges may be, just see them as barriers that we're breaking through. Earlier on, Madame Diop had mentioned that what is a challenge? It's just an element. It is not the wall that you have to break. Understand that we have the solutions with us. You are the solution to every problem you see. So it means that you are the seer. You see it, which means you can bring it down. So understanding barriers, creating our own space with women's entrepreneurship development, bringing women to the table. We need to be the voices, like you said, at the table, and not just at the table. Those spaces reserve and create other opportunities for others coming up and integrating with that. So for impact, the voices have to be coherent. What are we saying when we get to the table? Many times they see the woman as being emotional, but the truth is we can bring emotional intelligence to everything we want to say, and we need to blend into the conversation. So there's nothing wrong with your EQ over IQ. We just have to make sure that we keep the Q in there. Yes, exactly. There's nothing wrong with our EQ over IQ. The fact of the matter is, as women, we were born with emotions, created with emotions. We just need to understand that channeling the emotion intelligently makes us emotionally intelligent. When we don't, it shows that there's a deficit. So please, let's retrain. Retrain your emotions, and you will keep them on track for the right conversations when you come into the room. Because the most unfortunate, pathetic, tragic thing is that we get into a room representing 1,000 voices that cannot be heard. But your voice has been carried away by your emotions to the point you don't deliver the message for those you are representing. So please always remember, whatever the challenge may be, let's put that challenge outside the door. It's just an element. And let's own the moment, hold the conversation, and deliver our message. Thank you very much. Thank you very much once again. Let's appreciate Madam Vanessa Pala. Thank you very much also to the assistant who also became the paparazzi. Thank you very much, Corinne. We appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you very much. So right now, for the panel discussion, an interactive Q&A session, we have as our moderator, the Chief Demographic Dynamics for Development, DDD section of the ECA SRO West Africa, we'd like to please invite to come up Bakari Dosso. Bakari Dosso, please to come up. Please welcome Bakari. Let us make him this is our brother in this paradigm, and he is a senior economic affairs officer, head of the DDD Center for UNECA and the sub-regional office of West Africa based in Niamey, Niger. So, sir, please be seated. You will be moderating. He oversees the work of UNECA to strengthen the capacity of member states, mainstream demographic dynamics, challenges into policy and development planning. He shall be doing just that with the panel right now. So invite him to please come up and be seated on the panel. Our panelist today, Mrs. Fumilola Arowogun, President, NECAS Network of Entrepreneurial Women, NNEW. We also have, thank you, please let's applaud and welcome and receive her. She is an agripreneur running a full-scale sawmill. So we've had the carpenter, now we have the sawmill entrepreneur. She has an oil palm plantation and a palm oil processing factory. She is also an agribusiness consultant, coach, motivational speaker, skilled in negotiation, business planning, coaching, entrepreneurship, strategic planning, strong entrepreneurship professionalism with a master's degree focused in condensed matter and materials physics from the Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta. My goodness, you're a kaleidoscope of different expressions. And BTech degree in physics and computer science from Federal University of digital technology, innovation, and every expression. Please put your hands together and help me welcome Fumilola Arowogun, President NECA. Thank you, represented by Aisha James. Let's welcome Aisha James. And we also would like to invite to please come up Engineer Gbenga Iyolawi, CEO Titan Farms Nigeria and the UAE, Chief Executive Officer, Titan Farms Incorporated, also Chieftain of Ibadan, titled Are Kebimakbalu, let hunger not kill the community of Ibadan land. Amen. He's a philanthropist and has been supporting the people of Ibadan through his fast rising agricultural agribusiness company, Titan Farms in Ibadan. Engineer Olatubosun, through his agribusiness brand, was recently awarded the Most Supportive Brand of the Year 2020 in an award ceremony in Ibadan. Please once again, help me appreciate the area of Let Us Not Be Hungry in the Community, Kebimakbalu, Ibadan. Our next panelist, Amadou Diop, is a chief sub-regional initiatives, sub-regional initiative section. And today, even as he comes up, Amadou Diop. Oh, he's going to be online.
Lady Letitia.
Oh, represented by Letitia. Please let us welcome Letitia. She comes up representing the office, the Economic Affairs Officer at the Center of Demographic Dynamics for Development in West Africa. And we have our next representative for Dr. Teresa St. Bentecourt. No, actually, Dr. Christina Oelmoger. Dr. Christina Oelmoger, representing the Pro Vice Chancellor and Head of College for Social Sciences at the University of Birmingham. Please let us welcome Dr. Christina as she comes upstage. Dr. Christina, please. Or maybe she's coming online. I'll have that clarification, I'm certain, in under a minute. So please permit me to invite Ms. Mogua, representing Dr. Teresa St. Bentecourt, Salem Professor in Global Practice from Boston College. Thank you very much. And you are Dr. Okay, all right, please help me appreciate and welcome Ms. Mogua, who is representing Dr. Teresa Bentecourt. And like I said, she's Salem Professor in Global Practices at Boston College, She will be virtual. However, right now we have Moiga who will be sitting on the panel, and Dr. Teresa will be answering online during the questions and answers. She is the Assistant Professor of Child Health and Human Rights in the Department of Global Health and Population at the Harvard School of Public Health. Dr. Benton Court is member of the Francois Xavier Bernoud Center for Health and Human Rights, where she directs the research programs on children and global adversity. Her central research interests focus on the developmental and psychosocial consequences of concentrated adversity on children and families. Much more in the conversation being articulated, but right now, I believe still expected is Dr. Christina Olmerer, lecturer from Loughborough University. This is virtual. It is virtual. She's a lecturer in international relations. Prior to working at Loughborough, she worked at the University of Sussex, where she also completed a DPhil. She has a multidisciplinary background with degrees in social policy, politics, and law, intercultural work, human rights, conflict management, research methods, awarded by universities in both Germany and the United Kingdom. Outside of academia, she has worked for several years in organizations relevant to the social sciences, including the UNHCR branch in Berlin and INGO in Geneva. Please welcome online for her virtual contribution and interventions, Dr. Christina Olmerer. Thank you. And now, over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, MC. Thank you very much. The session that we'll have now is very important. It will continue the discussion we start this morning in understanding the constraints women and youth face in doing business. And our hope is the session will allow us also to have active labor market policies to facilitate women and youth entrepreneurship. Before I engage the panel members, and I just want to recognize the wonderful presentation made by Vanessa of ILO. It was very important to know that at least we have the government, the employer, and the workers' organizations around the tables and discussing on how really to shape the future of work. There are several points she put together, and I think this will be the point of our discussion. I will engage you, and then certainly around those points. I just want to start with engineer owner of Titan Farm. Thank you to joining us. I think you are working in, you have experience in agriculture, which is very important indeed, because we know that on our continent in West Africa, the rural sector is very important in terms of the global GDP. And then agriculture is very important as well. So tell me, what is your experience in terms of women and youth constraints in the agri? And what is some kind of tool intake we can get from you to move forward?
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate you, and thank you for having me here. For my kind of business, agriculture, it's quite dicey, to be honest, because the natural belief is that women don't like agriculture because of the nature of business. There's also a natural belief that youth don't engage in agriculture because they don't like dirtying their hands. As most people believe, agriculture is for the poor, the illiterate, and the old. But unfortunately, the narrative has to change. And that's why people like us are in the field. If agriculture was presented in the light of other white collar fields, we will realize that agriculture is actually more profitable and lucrative than most of these fields. If agriculture was presented in the light of sexy jobs, so to say, it would be more interesting. I had a colleague of mine from, I think, Kenya speak about it also, and I was wow that, oh, really? This is all we should be talking about. So our experience basically is simple. In as much as we have youth in agriculture, we are in agriculture, we are trying to put things together in agriculture, and we are doing our best to ensure it pulls through. The youth are not helping matters in reality. We've had to put together training sessions, empowerment sessions for youth. And just so you know, mostly free. And during the training sessions, they act how serious, like someone that has just been baptized, but ask them to come back to give you a feedback on what they've done so far. You realize it ended where you presented or taught them. So instead of just teaching, for us, we decided to go a step further. Let us engage. And that was why for us, as a rice processing outfit, we do not end our line by just processing. We looked further into what we can do to ensure more people come into the field, to ensure we are able to run our business more smoothly. And that way we're able to create a chain that every other person can follow. I call our line of business the micropreneurship. Because when we started as traders. We were just a trading outfit. Okay, let's just buy this thing ourselves. But along the line, we realized we can actually make more money if we process these things, rather than just buying and selling. So we ventured into processing, distribution, and marketing. Right from there, we also realized we can make more money if we actually take a step further by going into the farms. But of course, I will not farm. Just because of that same belief that farming is tedious, why do I have to stress myself? There are people who are trained to be farmers, people who went to school of agrics. Okay, at the moment we have a partnership with a particular Federal University of Agric, where we intend to launch one of our programs with them. And this is one we have started doing with some indigents in the north, which is aggregation of young farmers. The problem farmers have majorly is one, resources, mechanization, and markets. For us, we understand that, okay, they may not have the resources. Even when they have it, they may not have the required technical know-how to successfully exhibit. So as long as you can get your own resources, as long as you can get your raw materials, we can work together. At least make sure you put something on the table. So able to put together a group of farmers, get your raw materials, plant, but who come in, who buy the mechanized material, mechanized machines for you. You can get your harvester and all. But instead of you looking for money to buy harvester as a single farmer, 54 farmers can come together on their house. We buy the harvesters for them and they use it on a rotational basis. But on a condition, we buy off the produce, solving another problem for them, markets. So it's a one stone kill three birds for us. At the same time, we're able to target three different problems, which is the problem of agriculture, farming itself, the mechanization, and the markets. And for our women, of course, if other agro-based businesses can follow suit, or if the government can adopt that policy or that particular model, it will go a long way. Because what we have done as a company, as a business, is to transfer what we have done so far to others to also replicate it. Now for the women, most people believe it is very difficult for women to actually make money from agriculture. But I would say it is the easiest of all things to do. There's just one business in this country or any other country in Africa for that matter that would never go out of vogue. That is the food business. As long as people eat, you make money. So we're able to create a channel in that line for women. And women are known more to be very good with money and multiplying money. Not that women don't know how to do it, but it seems this thing comes naturally for women. So instead of trying to pull them into the farming sector, why not push them into the finished product sector by distributing? So the same model we have used for farmers is being used for them, which is micropreneurship, aggregating a group of women who cannot afford to buy lunch bulk or distributorship into one, and they distribute the products at distributor's price. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very interesting indeed. Finance, markets, mechanizations is important, and you are putting together a group of women and youth together in terms of cooperative. Please join in the last presentation where reference were made to cooperative. That is very interesting indeed. I think this is some good experience. Maybe we could encourage replicating somewhere else.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. So I come to Aisha from the NACAS network of entrepreneurial women. Thank you. You know, we want to hear from you. What is your perspective in terms of constraints facing women's entrepreneur? We already hear the issue of access to finance. Yes. We hear issue. No, what about education? Can you bring education, question of educations, their skills? Is there any issue of, in terms of gender norms, and maybe social, cultural situations? Please, over to you.
Thank you very much. I want to appreciate the organizers of this auspicious event. Thank you very much for the good work. And thank you for the opportunity to stand and represent my president. The problems women entrepreneurs face are enormous, but they are surmountable. If every stakeholder, if we can map all the stakeholders connected into ensuring our economic emancipation happens and quickly, if we are willing to take ownership of our responsibilities, of our duties, and we take ownership of that which we ought to do, I believe in a short time, we'll be able to overcome all the challenges. Some challenges are peculiar to MSME, that's entrepreneurs generally, but in particular, there are some that are gender, that affects the female more. I know there was a time a friend who has a farm somewhere in Ogun State, got a loan, and in the course of getting the loan, she cultivated cassava, and just shortly before harvesting, these herdsmen came in, uprooted all her produce, and fed their cattle with it. That's one big challenge, and she went all over the place. But because she's a woman, she didn't get the kind of support she should get. Rather than get the support and the sympathy, the empathy that she should get, they were telling her, why didn't you fence around? Why didn't you do this? You know, so sometimes we're faced with discrimination in diverse ways. We're faced with emotional discrimination, and that impacts on the productivity of the woman herself. Because if a woman is emotionally drained and feels disenfranchised and feels segregated against, it's tough to really put the things together. And that's under security, which is also common to other people. For me, I would want to look at the aspect of what we can do differently. Like we talked about feeder roads that are bad to farms, to farm gate, that makes us to experience large number of post-harvest waste. I'd like to say that rather than fix the roads, why don't we just put the money together, since politicians are fond of exorbitant amount that they need to fix roads, put that money together, a fraction of that money, and build processing hubs close to farm gates so that we reduce the number of time that people have to travel and encounter all sorts of bandits, reduce the wastages that we experience year in, year out. And in that same vein, we're also tackling the issue of food security when we have the processing farm close to the farm gate, so that we're not transporting perishable, rather we're adding value to those things. And that way, as we add value by drying, probably just a dehydrator and a milling machine, just that, this basic, simple first stage of production, so that by the time they are selling this as raw materials for other producers that needs these items as input in their businesses, their cost of production is down because they are not paying for the perished ones. They are not paying to transport water. And I want to talk to the aspect of climate change. There's need to sensitize the grassroots. There's need for more action when it comes to educating the grassroots. Sometimes when you pass the roads, market women, I'm just using that as an example, when it rains, they pour in their bin in the gutters and they tell you that the flood will take it away, forgetting that they are expanding the footprint, the waste footprint. So there are so many simple things we can do that help improve the business we do as women, and to help us do much more, like taking advantage of technology, leveraging on technology. I remember during the COVID, for instance, I started a project shortly before the COVID, and because of the COVID, we had to re-strategize from being physical to being online, and it became a success story at the end of the day. I noticed a skill gap in the aspect of manufacturing, because now I'm in manufacturing, and I started by creating boot camp, training people, mentoring, coaching on good manufacturing practice, on good hygiene practice, so that our products, when we produce them, become more globally acceptable and can enter more markets beyond Nigerian market. So we need to take advantage of such technology. And the only way we can take advantage of it is to accept that we need to learn. Nobody was born with these skills. We need to put ourselves down. Let me tell you the truth. During COVID, I had to call my daughter to teach me some skills, some tools that I'm using today. I had to sit her down and come and show me, how do I achieve this? I still consult with her. You know, we need to get to that point where we are humble enough to learn new skills and believe that we can learn it. Some of us are aversive to learning new technology, new opportunities, and new skills. And before long, we'll become irrelevant and out of sync if we don't embrace change. So before you stop me, the last thing is we need to create more vocational schools, hubs, innovation centers, you know, to sharpen the skill gap for our youth. And it should go beyond tertiary institution. We should take it down to primary and have camps during long vacation where they learn a skill. I do that for my children. During holiday, I make sure they learn a different skill. So they become competitive in a global market they will find themselves tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Aisha. That is very interesting. We know that you focus on the issue of gender. There's a gender bias somewhere against women, we note. And also you encourage processing farm to be close to the farm gates, which is important. The issue of climate change as well. And we can do little things to improve the productivity. That is very important to note. And also, I want to take, before I go to the panelists online, because you touched on a very important thing, which is the training, capacity, skills, which is very important indeed. And then we have to continue to learn, and with young people, that is very important. On this, I want to go to online because we are referring to training, capacity building. What is your perspective? Dr. Christina from Boston University.
Hello, everybody.
Over to you.
I hope you can hear me. I wanted to thank the organizers. Can you hear me? Am I audible? Okay, please do let me know when I'm audible. I can't hear the moderator now. Maybe the tech team can communicate via chat. I'm just assuming. Sorry, can you hear me? I can't hear the moderator. Okay, can you hear me now? Can somebody give me a thumbs up, thumbs down? Thumbs up? Okay, sorry about that. I can't hear you, so I'm just going to talk at you. Thank you very much for inviting me, and also thank you so much for an absolutely exciting day so far. I'm going to try to make this short because it is already after 6, and I'm supposing that you probably want to go home or discover Lagos at some point. McChoice is a consortium of researchers, and we did research in Gambia, Guinea, and Senegal. We were lucky to have a good team who was on the ground, so we were lucky to be able to research throughout COVID and therefore job create. So that was a good thing in itself. We looked at development interventions, broadly speaking, but especially training and entrepreneurship interventions, and how they have recently been linked to migration or mobility. And I think in the context when we're thinking about constraints, but also training more broadly, what we heard when we talked to young people, this wasn't exclusively women, but many women, is what they need is hope. And in part, they do get that through training and entrepreneurship training. But what many people said is, look, whatever it is, we want jobs. And we have heard today quite a lot about the need for resources. So they're not saying no to these trainings, but they're actually saying, okay, we take the learning that we get, but more importantly, we take the resources because that is better than not having a job. So that begs the question, what are the constraints here that these young people do not get onto the ladder of having their own business or finding a job? And the first thing that we've learned, and I've learned that by interviewing both in the field but also in Abuja, is that there's a policy architecture. And I was very happy to listen to the to Vanessa's presentation, because I think she said two things that we also found in our research that are really important. So first, there's a disconnect between policy, which is actually quite proficient, quite professional, has good ideas, at least at the international and ECOWAS regional level. But there's a disconnect between that, policies at the national level, and practice, so where it is implemented. The good ideas just do not filter through mainly because either the national policies aren't there. So Vanessa talked about interministerial coordination, and that is indeed a problem in the countries that we researched and where we interviewed ministerial level governmental policy people as well. So interministerial coordination, we found too, is a major constraint for people actually realizing their fantastic ideas that they're having of the kind that you've been talking about today. So there's the policy architecture, the policy landscape that is not quite joined up, where often what we found is that people understand that knowledge is power, but then they don't share it. So I'd be interested to hear the business people amongst you, how you feel about knowledge as shared power rather than keeping it close to the heart and not sharing it. So one of my suggestions from our findings is that, share the knowledge, because that creates opportunity, it empowers, and it creates a better policy environment, which is ultimately enabling for the youth. Then a bit more practically in terms of these interventions. So many of the interventions conceptually think about entrepreneurship as very individualist. And what we found is that is conceptually very problematic. And so if you look back pre-colonial history into the 12th century and look at businesses and supply chains in West Africa, how the economy has worked actually since the 12th century until colonization, was that there was a close relationship between servicing the community, being at the heart of it and knowing what the needs of the communities are, negotiating with politicians, paving the way. So ECOWAS gives you the policy environment for freedom of movement, but it would be good if that would be implemented, and business people like you have to push for that. It's no good if that is just academics saying we need to have easier freedom of movement. Because you're the people who are doing it practically. And so what we found was, however much training and entrepreneurship implementation or interventions we can do, if young people do not have the freedom, if they're reduced to just individual interest without taking into account what their family needs, what their communities need, what their villages need, you can train as much as you like, but these entrepreneur programs don't necessarily come off. So embed these better in order so that young people are better integrated. So again, Vanessa earlier talked about coordinating voice, but that voice needs to be intelligible and it needs to be understood both up into the policy sphere, but it also needs to be understood down as well as sideways into the community. So there's actually quite an uphill struggle. And this is what we learned from talking to the young people. So it's not like we're massively intelligent and making this up. It's like, you talk to your own young people and they have brilliant ideas. The other thing is, we're actually talking about two different types. So there's the more privileged people, and they still have the chance to go to America, to Canada, to Europe to study. And therefore they have a completely different background to then start businesses and start engaging. Whereas you also have young people who are not quite so privileged, and also who have to negotiate with their elders. So there are a set of discriminations that people have to contend with, young people have to contend with. Women have to contend with patriarchy, but young people more broadly have to contend with elders who subordinate them, who might not give them access to land, or who otherwise insist that they take a role within the wider family or community that actually hinders potential to, have a job yourself, so self-employment, or even create something bigger. So there are these constraints. And one thing that we found is that migrating, whether that is to the next city or to the major city like Conakry or Dakar or or other cities, or just across the border into Mali or into Cote d'Ivoire, or even regionally into Nigeria or back and forth, is actually quite important. And what we have here is we've got a lot of young people who actually know how to circulate. And this is not something that the ECOWAS particularly celebrates. It's also not something that the United Nations can particularly celebrate, because donor countries don't like that. Donor countries have a very confused and contradictory narrative of, on the one hand, wanting to support freedom of movement within regional areas because they understand that's good for the economy, but on the other hand, they're actually wanting to fix people in place because of racist and other problematic, especially European policies. So young people have to contend with this contradiction of the donor community too. And so if you guys have lots of good ideas of how to overcome that, maybe specifically or bigger through the African Union, through the ECOWAS, through negotiating with your own governments, then that's certainly a start. But I think you should also trust your young people that they have lots of creativity to kind of just poke the power once in a while. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Business people should talk to themselves, which is important, and the generational support from the elders to the young people. That is important. And then ECOWAS involvement in terms of policy landscape, and also the country involvement in policy landscape, very important takeaway. Thank you for your interventions, which is appreciated. In the same vein, can I go to before Vanessa? Vanessa, you will come, and Letitia, you will come later on, please. Mrs., can I have your view on, in the same vein, the same question in terms of education, the constraints facing women, etc. What is your perspective, please?
I'll just continue so that I don't take much time. In our work in Sierra Leone, we are looking at alternative delivery platforms and implementation models of evidence-based to scale up, evidence-based intervention to scale up for adversities affecting youth in Sierra Leone. So we have an intervention called the Youth Readiness Intervention that is integrated in the educational platform and also in the employment platform. For the employment platform, we collaborated with the German International Corporation, GIZ, as they provided the employment promotion package, whilst we did the psychosocial part of the implementation. The Youth Readiness Intervention is a 12-session model that lasts for 90 minutes each, and each phase builds into the last. The Youth Readiness Intervention looks at 3 arms. We look at problem solving, emotional regulation and functioning, and also we look at good communication, effective communication and interpersonal relationship amongst youth. This intervention is delivered by lay counselors who do not have any required training in mental health or any specific training at all. What we focused on is, and prioritized, is to look at intensive training of youths, and also we did supportive supervision in a platform of individual supervision and group supervision that helped our youths to learn more, having peer-to-peer trainings, and then it built on their social connections. So with this, we delivered the youth readiness intervention. It was integrated into the education arm, which was also very successful, and the employment arm of our program. The psychosocial aspect of our program helps our youth to be more prepared. We prepare the mindset of the youth. I know all the speakers have said so much about how what we can do, what are the the outcomes that we can have to build on the businesses that women have in our different societies. And that is one area, that is one aspect we looked at in our intervention. We looked at women preparing their mindsets. We looked at preparing them, ensuring that they are confident enough and they believe in themselves to take up whatever they want to do in society. We have completed our intervention, and the preliminary studies show that these youths and women have learned so much, and they have been able to improve on what they have done so far in their different societies, because they have been trained in such a way that they believe in themselves, they believe in the work they are doing, and they are able to take whatever they are doing to the next level to ensure that they make profit in their businesses and even have a very good interpersonal relationship in their communities and in their homes. So these are some of the ways we have looked at the aspect of ensuring that our work in our different communities creates an impact as an organization.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That is very good. Preparing them and changing the mindset youth. This is very important indeed. And you are trying to build confidence, to build forward better in the life. So this is really interesting to note. These are some of the cases that could be replicated. You know, this is important. Let me come back to the last panelists before we give for interaction the floor to 2 or 3 participants to intervene. You could also ask questions to the presenter, to the main presenter, or to the panelists. That would be fine. Leticia Appiah is the Director of National Population Council of Ghana, and she is also consulting for the ECA. Leticia, what is the policy perspective? You know, in terms, we know the demographic change dynamics in our sub-region and in Africa. We know in terms of youth, the number of youth coming every year into the job market, and compared to the gap of employment that is, that is going out, that is available for them. So we also know that most of in our countries in Africa, and the informal sector is very huge. So in your sense, what is the perspective in terms of policy in short term, and certainly medium or long term? With you.
Yeah, thank you, Bakari, for the opportunity. And I think it's been a very interesting program so far. I think that I will follow up with what our presenter virtually said. There's a lot of policy incoherence in Africa. because I think that nothing happens in a vacuum. As you said, we have so many young people who need training and then afterwards jobs. Currently, we are in Nigeria, so I will use some data from Nigeria because facts are very stubborn. They do not react to our wishes and our emotions. They're just facts. You know, currently in Nigeria, Nigeria has more children than the whole of Europe put together. So which means that in a year, Nigeria is supposed to produce more work to absorb. That is the fact. Looking at Africa as a continent, globally, the annual net increase is about 83 million people. And Africa alone increases by over 60 million, more than the population of UK, which means that Africa, if we do not look at policy coherence, we are supposed to be producing more jobs than any other continent. That is the fact, you know. So there's a lot of policy incoherence. How are we linking our population growth rate to our training, to our jobs? Because everywhere, when you are born, you are trained, and then you have a job. The ILO presentation tells us the unemployment. We have about 21% of our young people not in training, not in employment, not in education. So where are they? What are they supposed to be doing? You know, then we have the presentations we had today. We had 10-year-olds in informal employment. What kind of skill can a 10-year-old, if you enter informal employment, can you have? We're talking about future of jobs, where automation is taking over a lot of the things we are doing. How are we factoring in on that? We're talking about COVID. COVID is putting a lot of things virtual, and ignorant people cannot do virtual, which means that you need to be educated. How are we factoring in all this in our policies? So I think our policies are not helping us. We are doing a lot in job creation, but the rate at which we are going, we need to double up, because even the US cannot accommodate these numbers. Nigeria has to produce more jobs than the USA, per the facts. And I said facts are very stubborn. They cannot change with our wishes. So we need to look at things holistically and know that labor supply today started 15 years ago. And labor supply in the next 15 years is starting today. So yes, with our short-term linking us all up so that we support our women, how are we going to behave 15 years from now? One of the presenters said, for 45 years or so, Africa has been doing this restructuring and trying to catch up. And we are here today doing this again. So are we still going to do the same things and expect different results? Or we are going to look at things from the source? So we have to look at it and know that what we are doing today will come back to hurt us tomorrow, like what we did yesterday. And come out with policies that would synchronize inflows and outflows, because labor supply is from birth. It's not even from school. Schools are supplied from the birth. So we have to look at it and make sure that we are bridging our inequality gap by bringing people up. I think that, Bakari, the most important resource is not natural resource, it's time. And the time you use to educate yourself, you cannot use that same time to reproduce, for instance, because you either choose what to do with your time when, you know. So we have to make sure that the policy incoherence in my mind is what is really hurting our continent, until we look at it and put things in harmony and know that this affects this, affects this, affects this, and holistically come out with a program that will let everybody harness their potential and let quality drive our numbers. not numbers determine the quality of life that we are leading, that will be very difficult for us to bring everybody up. The women are informal sector. Majority of them are informal sector, not because they want to, but out of necessity. How are we building the Africa we want out of necessity? What is the vision? Are the jobs we are creating fitting into that vision? We have to know whether it's fitting into it or not. Why are the women in informal? Why did COVID affect them the most? Because they are the least educated and they are the least, the lower end jobs. And COVID really brought the divide between education and no education, because those who were educated took advantage. COVID became like the storm that the eagle took. The eagle, soars when there's a storm, So COVID became the storm, and then the eagles soared, and the other birds perished. So COVID is really telling us where we should probably apply some attention and bridge the inequality gap. Because we are here, but we are not supposed to be talking for only those who are here. We have to bridge the inequality gap. This 21% of our youth who are not in employment, not in education, not in training, will not let your business thrive because they will come after you. So the enabling environment for the business is also important. And for me, I think policy incoherence is working for about almost 30 years in the public service. I think policy incoherence is really what is hitting our continent.
Thank you. Thank you, Leticia. I think this is a very important point that we have to take note of that. You underline that 1 in 5 youth 15 to 24 are not in education, employment, or training. We see what are they doing? Big question. And then the policy coherence is an issue. I think we, in terms of policy, we have to advocate for more policy coherence. And we are very happy in the opening speech of the minister this morning about Nigeria, as she underlined that the 2021-2026 development plan really try to take on board issue of youth and women. These are very important. It's important to continue to engage in the policy makers, because something has to happen. I don't know in terms of planning to 10 years from now what will happen. It is said that in 2050 we will have more youth in Africa than all the world. So these are very important points that we note. And before, I want to give the opportunity to the participant to ask questions, maybe one or two questions. Yes, please come here, come close. Someone else? The discussion indeed is very interesting. I will prefer to come back again to but we will continue this discussion. We have two more days to go, and we'll have the opportunity to raise these questions. So we have two participants who want to ask questions, please. Sir, go ahead. Yes, please. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, moderator. Since I had been on the earlier panel, I didn't want to come back. But after listening to the last speaker, I think it's important to reinforce the point that is being made with respect to the fact that if our policymakers in the continent continue to behave the way they are behaving and not taking into serious consideration the interests of the younger ones, while our women have continued to be patient, what has happened in two of the biggest countries and economies in the African continent within a few months of each other should tell us that the patience of the youth will not be indefinite. In Nigeria, the youth came together to try to peacefully organize to protest what they thought was an unjust system. The system rigged against them. And then the elements that sociologists will refer to as the lumpens took over, and the type of destruction they brought on Lagos and the other places that this happened was unimaginable. It took Lagos back, it took the places where this activity happened back. Not 3 months ago, the South African youths only needed the imprisonment of Zuma, which I think it was right that he was imprisoned, but because there's a lot of pent-up energy, pent-up anger, the disruption that happened with the 3 days before the ANC government was able to bring it under control, does go to show that our leaders are living in a time bomb. And unless we start planning seriously for the youths and giving them proper education for the 21st century, this continent is going to be in a lot of trouble. I just thought I should just put this on the table or to reinforce what have been said by speakers. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you. This is a very important point that you underline, that we need to plan. We need to plan and take on board the youth and the women. We have to avoid this time bomb. In while, please come for your question.
Good afternoon. I sneaked as I came on board, and I'm going to try not to be controversial here, but I'm going to speak my mind. And this is a thought process, and I'd like to be educated or enlightened. Like I said earlier, my name is Abiola Ogunbiyi. My background is law. I have a master's in law as well, just for the record. But for the past 30 years, I have played in the tourism space, specifically as a tour operator and a tour guide. That is the lowest entry point in the value chain. That's what I've done for 30 years. Why? The question is why? One thing that has happened and why is I know my nation. I recognize my region. I have been with the elites and I have been with the people. And I think I have a roughly clear understanding. So my questions are, when we're talking about data and statistics and questioning the youths, Are we questioning, are we getting data from the elite youths, my children, our side, the elites? Or are we getting the people that form, as we have said, the huge base of the pyramid? That's one question. The second question, and this is where, forgive me, it's a question. I mean, I'm just trying to. Now, when we're talking about insubordination and cultural norms, when we're talking about child, how do we call it now? Child labor. Child labor. Are we, please, Africans, and I need us to think, and maybe I don't need an answer to this. Let's just go back home and think about it. Are we throwing the baby away with the bathwater? I stand here before you. I'm 60 this year. And in the course of my journey, I have educated at least 4 children that are not mine, not my biological children. My first child, the first young person that stayed with me and I educated, was when I was like 2 years into my marriage. I got married in 1988. She's a graduate. She lives in the elite sector, and her children go to private schools, and she is well married. And she came, she helped, she worked, she went through school. The 2 others came as well. One had to leave at some point in time, and the second one. The third one educated, and I've educated few that I have not kept with me. But the success story on my journey is the young lady that lived with me. The others, I paid the school fees. They're okay, they're fine, they've gone through school, but their level of elitism at this point, because they were not around us. So should we be looking at how we look at child labor, please? Let's reinvent it. Let's tweak it. Let's look at it. You know, because I read from Sawyer, David Copperfield, the others. Let's tweak it, okay? Question 3. All together, please. I don't know who's going to answer what. Now, about this tourism. You know, when we're talking about creating jobs as well and matching industry needs, are we also looking at the rural, how to stem rural-urban drift? So we take job creation to the needs in the rural sector and take it from there. What I don't know does not hurt me, and I can grow. I'm 3rd generation educated, but I have the history that we too started from there, and the next level went to the next level and the next level. So should we tweak? Please don't let us throw the baby away with the bathwater. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. The discussion, the level of discussion is now very high. your question were very interesting. And I think I will ask the panelists, whoever will want to go and take some of the questions. Okay, so just 1 minute. But
I'd like to speak to the first.
1 second. Yes, I think this is, and then I will also invite the director of ILO, because we touch upon the question of child labor. If you can say something on it, that would be interesting. You know, I think I'm seeing hands up, but you know, we are going very late, but maybe we'll take one last question, and then we go and and we conclude. Please come over.
Bonsoir à tous. Je vais aller en français.
Oui, allez-y.
D'accord. Je suis Rabia.
Pouvez-vous rapprocher du du micro pour qu'on puisse entendre.
D'accord. Ça peut aller? OK. Je disais tantôt,
Une seconde pour permettre aux anglophones de mettre leur casque, pour comprendre de quoi il s'agit. Donc, on sait qu'il y a eu un petit biais vis-à-vis du français. Moi, je pense que cette question est bien la bienvenue, quoi. Allez-y.
Merci.
Allez-y.
OK, je suis Rabiatou Mamoudou, entrepreneur, directrice des agences Success Voyage et Tourisme. Nous sommes basés à Lomé au Togo. Je suis également membre Jeune Chambre et vice-présidente exécutive nationale pour le mandat 2021. Je vous remercie énormément pour l'opportunité que vous nous avez offerte cette semaine, l'opportunité qui nous permet d'apprendre davantage. Alors, je vais droit à ma question, qui va s'adresser spécialement sur le volet formation. J'ai suivi avec attention les différentes interventions et quand je me réfère au cas de mon pays, le Togo, nous avons ces braves dames, nos grands-mères, nos mères, qui ont longtemps fait la promotion du PAN et qui sont reconnues comme les Nana Benz dans toute l'Afrique et au-delà. Les dames n'ont pas forcément été formées. Alors, mon inquiétude ce soir, est-ce qu'on a forcément besoin d'être formé pour être entrepreneur? Merci.
Merci beaucoup pour votre question. Donc, on va aller maintenant aux membres du panel pour les réponses. So we come back to the panel member, and also, can I give to you, Vanessa, Director of ILO.
Thank you so much for the questions. I think they were thought-provoking, not very controversial, I think necessary questions. Just to touch quickly on the issue of child labor. And I hear your question, and this is a question that we always get, especially when you talk about child labor. There's a difference between child labor and work that children do at home that is part of their development and growth, and also teaches young children to be responsible. A lot of us grew up in households where you had chores, you had different activities. I grew up in South Africa in a township in Soweto. My uncle owned a tavern. I don't know what you call it here, like a shebeen. And I was a little shebeen queen playing jazz at the age of 9, 10. So that was for us where we made money to buy food and to put roof over our heads. So that is not what we mean by child labor. The definition of child labor for the ILO, it's actually work that deprives children of their childhood, work that endangers children, and work that is harmful to children, and also work that really deprive children of their dignity. So this here, we're talking about children that are made to do, for example, pornographic material, or children that are exposed to hazardous work, or children that are engaged in work that actually takes them away from school. That is what we call child labor. It's not the normal house chores that children do that is important for their growth, for their mental development, and also teaches them to be responsible and also to be better persons tomorrow. But it is actually work that is not of good for the child, work that is harmful, and work that takes away the dignity of the child, work that removes the child from school. That is what we mean by child labor. Thanks.
Young children that can stay in families, because there's a misconception, you know, because people are not enlightened enough to understand this explanation that you've just given. You know, obviously you understand that I possibly have that, I have that understanding, but the nations don't. So what's happening is that they're just keeping young relatives, young children out of homes. And you just find them nothing. So we need to go a step further as intervention now as women and actually find ways where we can have those setups, which some religious organizations had, but they've canceled. You know, we need to address that, is what I'm saying. You need to go in, find out what was happening before, tweak it, and make it work. And then, you know, there's ways to police it. On my trees, we have transform policing. You know, so these are the things we'll talk about in the smaller breakaway groups.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know, I don't want to have a bilateral, but what she's raising are issues that we are also working on, so I can have a discussion with her.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the discussion. So I come back to the panel, starting with Aisha, please.
Thank you very much. I'd like to start by speaking to the first question. Do we need entrepreneurial training before we become entrepreneurs? No. Most times women especially end up into getting into entrepreneurship in order to augment for the family, in order to, you know, to cater for the family and augment for the income the husband or the other parties in the family are bringing in. But entrepreneurship training would help you build capacity, build strength, build the necessary skill to structure your business to become more sustainable. And at the end of the day, what is most important is having a legacy, having a business that can cater for others. The business is not just about you, it's about your community, impacting your community. And also talking to the aspect of the miscreants that went on rampage recently. For my BMO, we have a project that we're working on to get to the grassroots and get the 21% of youth that we have identified to train them part-time, 600 of them part-time. And we have started that project already. And fortunately, we have wonderful partners like EDC. They are partnering with us on that project. Another thing we do to also help build the skill gap is by going to the grassroots, to the uneducated entrepreneurs, to teach them skills when it comes to bookkeeping. During the COVID lockdown, with our partners' support from Canada and all that, we were able to train so many women in using alternative platform because many of them could not access their shops and could not sell their wares because they didn't know any other way outside the brick and mortar. So we exposed them to social media using simple tools like WhatsApp. And we also didn't just expose them by training, capacity building, we also gave them devices because we discovered many of them don't even have devices to do such work. So we gave them devices to help them do simple things and put their shop online. So thank you for the time.
Thank you for your input. Engineer Denga.
Yes, thank you so much, sir. And I'd like to run briefly through 3 points raised by members of our people here. One, you raised the fact that the government can do better and do more, and our community can be better. Well, for me, I'm going to talk from a personal perspective. I do not think we should rely on the government to get anything done. We can build independent units in our various community or environments to form our own independent government. Government is not politics. Government is what you make of it. 3 people in a community can run a government and make the place a very good community. For me, that is government. I don't care what happens at the higher level. As long as I make my immediate community a better place, that is my own local government. So whatever happens out there, yes, it does have an effect on the local level, but the effect will be minimal if we are able to cushion our own immediate environment. I noticed something else here. Okay, we're talking about, okay, she mentioned rural and urban drift. I've had the opportunity to relate a lot with people who are in what we call the rural communities. And I can tell you for a fact that 80% of them are happier than we that we are in an urban community. 80% of them are satisfied with their lifestyle than most of us in the urban community. And 80% of them live better on their mega income than those of us that even earn millions in this urban community. We encourage them to drift, only to draw them into suffering and unemployment. They can no longer go back to the village or rural communities, and we have to do unemployment rate here. I don't see the reason for that. So for those of us that are in the habit of bringing people from the village to the city, it's time we started thinking twice, because we may actually be adding more to their predicaments than we thought we were doing. Sorry, I have to note them down. Oh, yes. Do entrepreneurs need training? Or do we need training to be entrepreneurs? All my life, I've been an entrepreneur. Sorry to say this is not to mock or to say anything. All my life, I've never had to do a salaried job. Why? It was a personal decision. Each business that I do, that I feel like I learn. So to answer that question directly, do we have to be trained to be entrepreneurs? Yes. If you are doing a business and you are not trained and you are doing fine in that business, you are just a business person, you are not an entrepreneur. Until you move to another sector and you do fine again there before you can call yourself an entrepreneur. Because the knowledge you have in one business is not about the product knowledge, it's about the business knowledge that ranges from accounting to marketing and all sectors, all different sectors of business management. That's entrepreneurship, not just the art of trading or marketing. Thank you. Natasha.
Thank you. I think that entrepreneurship or whatever we do thrives in an enabling environment. It's like football. They play the game, but the referee is there to set the stage. And so the government creates the enabling environment for businesses to thrive based on our vision. And Africa, we have the Africa we want, which is our vision. And so that enabling environment should be created for entrepreneurs, for school children, for other skills to be acquired. Secondly, what I would want to say is the youthfulness we talk about is only a potential. It is not actual. It is potential, like ore. There's potential gold in ore, but it's not gold yet, till you refine it. So the youthfulness is potential, but till we harness it, it is not going to serve us. What I would want to say, and probably we think about when we are sleeping, is seriously, I have never seen any first world country that is this youthful. All first world countries have matured populations, and maturity in population dynamics depends on some indicators. One of them is the median age. And I would tie it to the first speaker who said there are issues happening in Africa. Within 1 month, we have 2 issues in 2 countries, which is youthfulness. You see, the criminologists will tell us that median age is directly proportional to the crime or whatever happens in the communities. When you have so many young people, where 21% of them are doing nothing, then it is easy to engage them. So just look at it. Where the median age is low, that is where you get a lot of civil unrest. And so population dynamics, maturity is the best, youthfulness is an advantage, but it is not where we really want to be. Because seriously, there's no first world country that is this youthful. When the world was very youthful, the whole world was not developed. The whole world at a point was very youthful, had a median age of what we have now, with life expectancy about 30 years, and the whole world was not that developed. So we need to look at this and make sure that our policies are really speaking to each other. And the government as a referee, the entrepreneurs should also probably push government so that it referees. Because when you are playing, you cannot be the referee. When the Manchester and the other people are playing, the referee is there to set the stage. So that is what I would want to say, that government should create the enabling environment for the businesses to thrive. Thank you.
Thank you. Please.
Yes, I would like to add my voice to say that trainings are very important in the area of entrepreneurship and in our daily lives, given the fact that we have a lot of atrocities and adversities in the world, the wars, the pandemic we have now, the Ebola outbreak, and all these adversities affect the human mind. And it has turned us or taken us to a level wherein people think differently, behave differently in our societies. We are talking about violence amongst youth. We are talking about how to cater for our families, where women suffer the most. Women are taking the burden of the family in our different communities. So in that aspect, we want more trainings in entrepreneurship for lower income earners. We are talking about a lot of speakers. We are asking questions that these sessions we have here, are they going to water down to vulnerable people, vulnerable women in our communities? Yes, we need to water it down. They need to benefit from these conferences and meetings we have because they are suffering the most. And they are starting with a very meager capital. To do that, they have a lot of psychosocial problems. They have a lot of stress and depressions that they suffer from. So to ensure that all of these aspects are addressed, we have to, like I said, prepare their mindsets. And our presenter said, sorry, I have a bad voice, I have cold. Like our presenter said, she said, our presenter Dayo said, package your market and market your package. To ensure that you market your package well, you have to be in the right frame of mind to do that. So trainings are very important for people, even down there. They can be trained in their local languages. They can understand simple bookkeeping, and because the business they are doing now is to get what they're living for the day, what they eat for the day. We want them to do their businesses in such a way that they can have profit and they can realize something at the end of the day that will be sustainable. So trainings are very important, and we pray that, I hope and pray that these sessions that we have will water down, will go down to the ministries, and they will become policies that will help people in the different communities, right down at the rural communities that we have.
Thank you very much. So with our last panelist, do you want to come in for 1 minute before we close?
Yes, thank you. I'd appreciate that. I'll be brief. I think I'm going to start with answering the question, which youth did we actually talk about? So in the 3 countries that we did research, we had five villages or 5 locations each. And the only places where we talked to elite youth was in Thiès, in the Senegal, in Conakry, in Guinea. So I think we did get quite a good idea of what people, especially in rural areas, were saying. And so that leads me to the next point that I would like to make about stemming rural-urban drift. from what we learned from these young people, I would be careful in problematizing, making a problem out of rural-urban drift. As I said, there's a lot of knowledge about how to circulate, and a lot of these young people actually love where they grow up. They have no problem with the urban, with the rural, other than that there may be age-related, generation-related difficulties. But think about who uses the argument of rural-urban drift and to what extent. So very often it labels and stigmatizes people that we might not actually want to stigmatize because they're generating value in itself by circulating, learning new skills, bringing these skills back into the rural area. So I'd just like to be a bit careful about how we're using these concepts and to what end. And that also leads me to the first speaker who made reference to both Nigeria, Lagos, where you are, and South Africa in the last month. And again, there's a constituency, especially in politics and internationally, but also in the countries that we did research, which is quite open to arguments that youth is criminal and to securitize these young people. And of course, there is a problem that there are a lot of young people and they deserve to have hope. This is how I started the presentation. They want to have a job, they want to be useful to their communities. But again, I think it is really important that we be very careful about not criminalizing them and not securitizing them, because that's not the narrative that they themselves lead. They want to be part of the community. They want to be useful. And so again, we should be maybe careful how we label these young people and therefore also how we're limiting what they can do, rather than, as the last speaker said, make sure that we're enabling them. Thank you.
Access to finance, lack of knowledge regarding business opportunities, social perceptions, skills, informal sector are identified as some of the barriers that women and youth are facing in doing business. I think it is, and it was suggested by the panelists and by the presenters that it's important to address these barriers and also to tackle gender stereotypes, as was said by Aisha. And we also have to increase the skills in entrepreneurship. It is important, as was said by the engineer, that is important that we train. Training is important. And the constraints with financial literacy is also important to alleviate. And the access to market and network. The question of the community involvement, how we can go from the policy coherence upstairs to the community. And these are, and also women representations in business associations. Access also to network. This is what we have started here. And in terms of mentoring, coaching, we identify as some of and the way to go. And it is important that the conclusion of this debate, I think we are just starting to have this debate. The first session was presenting the context, and now we are interrogating ourselves what are the barriers and to women and youth for participation in business. And I think tomorrow will give us opportunity to go into details, and we'll also continue the interaction we are having here, with between ourselves informally and in the 2 days to come. On this, I really want to thank the presenter of this session. Thank you for your wonderful presentation. And also want to really appreciate your participations. you have a specific example that you showcase this afternoon, I think can be a replicate in some other countries. I thank you. On this, the session is over. I thank you very much for listening to us. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup. Please, let's put a hand together for moderator, the panelists, and this was a thoroughbred inquisition. Let me put it that way. The panel that had to handle the inquisition, the strong talk, and of course, clarifications. And I believe that this is so important for setting the rest of the conversation and engagement for this conference. If you have any other questions going forward that you would like to ask, please forward them to the to the media, and they will be handled. Like we have some questions for the AFREXIM, and we're getting them. We're going to get those responses for you. They will come to your mailbox, and we will also address them tomorrow at the conference. So please, if you still have any other questions or clarifications, Madam Diop, I'm sure that the rapporteurs, by the time they're able to articulate again this information, you will get a comprehensive document on all of the interventions, questions, the answers, and those areas that may be gray areas. Remember, they become conversations for other side events as we go forward, because all the answers are not being handled here right now, but they have become veritable reference and resource for other conversations going forward. So thank you very much for the very deliberate and intentional interventions. They've been exhaustive, but they've been so relevant and necessary. And I believe the expedience of this would make sure that they translate into other engagements and feedback that is critical for this. So we'd like to thank our panelists. Please stand. Madame Diop, Your Excellency, we need you to come and take a picture with them. No, please come and join them instead for the picture. Thank you very much. And as we do that, remember, all across the nations and all around the world, the women have an advocacy, but bringing with them the youth and all of the teams and streams of institution, interventions, and everyone. So please, we'd be so glad to have you carefully. Yes, come up. I mean, those steps. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Madam Fala, your outfit is amazing. I had some young lady entrepreneurs. They have some other information they want from you. So please visit the exhibition stands. They have some outstanding craft, fashion, accessories, and all those designs. Okay, I have to get a power look in here. Everybody's looking. So I learned this at the UN. Put your head down, and when I say 3, you lift it up and smile. Are you ready? Head down. 1, 2, 3, smile. See, someone cheated. I know who cheated. You didn't put your head up, because once you do, the energy comes into your head and the smile comes out. So it's a light in the room. Thank you very much for everyone. And all right, we'd like to say thank you from Nigeria. We always close with the anthem, but I'll simply say, oh God of creation, direct our noble cause. Guide our leaders right and help our youth the truth to know, in love and honesty to grow, and living just and true, great lofty heights attain, to build an Africa where peace and justice and enterprise shall reign. God bless you, and God bless West Africa. God bless you all, everyone from all across West Africa, the 17 nations, the sub-region. Thank you. Now you see me, tomorrow you may not, but my spirit remains. The name is Dio Benjamin Slani. Make sure you give me your card. I need to stay connected with you, and you need to stay connected with me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. God bless you.
Turn round to see all the people making faces very cool. Carry me away, far from the circles that never breaks. Hey, hey, hey. Going home. Where this road goes, I already know. Where everybody cares for one another.